Alya is the undisputed center of attention at her school, a stunning and popular girl whose presence turns heads wherever she goes. Her classmates admire her beauty and charisma, and everything seems to revolve around her. As she makes her way through the halls, she crosses paths with Ando, the most sought-after boy in school. Confident and bold, Ando wastes no time in asking her out to lunch. However, Alya doesn't hesitate to turn him down. Not one to give up easily, Ando persists, trying to get her phone number. Alya, unimpressed and unfazed, rejects him again, this time in front of an audience. To make matters worse for Ando, she points out that his necklace violates the school's dress code. Her firm and cool dismissal of the most popular guy leaves everyone stunned. Whispers spread among the students as they speculate that Alya's standards must be impossibly high if even Ando isn't good enough for her. When Alya enters her classroom, her presence is impossible to ignore. She immediately captures everyone's attention, as she always does. Her gaze quickly falls on her classmate Masachika Kuze, who is fast asleep at his desk. Amused, Alya decides to wake him. Once Masachika regains his bearings, Alya teases him, asking if he stayed up late watching anime. Masachika sheepishly admits that he did, prompting her to scold him. However, he shrugs it off, claiming that his love for anime is a valid excuse. Alya, maintaining her usual composed and sharp demeanor, begins to insult him in her subtle way, which makes Masachika remark that she's being unusually harsh. As he stretches and yawns, he suddenly hears Alya mutter something under her breath in Russian. Curious but unsure, he asks her what she said. Shortly after, Masachika starts rummaging through his desk for his chemistry textbook, only to realize he's forgotten it at home. Embarrassed, he turns to Alya and asks if he can share hers. Alya raises an eyebrow and scolds him for his carelessness, but eventually agrees to let him read from her book. As the class progresses, Masachika struggles to stay awake and starts dozing off again. Noticing this, Alya nudges him awake, drawing the attention of both the teacher and their classmates. The teacher, now aware of Masachika's lack of focus, asks him a question. Panicking, Masachika glances at Alya, who subtly points to a section in the book. He takes a guess based on her hint, but his answer turns out to be wrong. Alya steps in with the correct response, earning praise from the teacher and further embarrassing Masachika. Irritated, he mutters a complaint under his breath, but Alya counters with another remark in Russian. This time, Masachika is startled because he thinks she might have called him adorable. Alya's words only deepen his confusion, especially since she seems to have hinted at something similar earlier that day. What Alya doesn't realize is that Masachika understands Russian, a skill he picked up in childhood while playing with a Russian girl who lived near his grandfather's house. As Masachika pieces together Alya's cryptic comments, he begins to wonder if the most beautiful and admired girl in school could actually have feelings for him. Her words and actions are subtle, yet they hint at something more than mere teasing. However, Alya isn't the only one vying for Masachika's attention. Yuki Suu, a childhood friend who has known him for years, also harbors feelings for him, adding another layer of complexity to the situation. The following morning, Masachika arrives early to clean the classroom and is surprised when Alya walks in. She notices him right away and seems intrigued by his unusual punctuality. Masachika, in turn, observes that Alya's stockings are dirty. She explains that a truck splashed her on the way to school, ruining them. Alya begins to change into a spare pair and, noticing Masachika's nervousness, decides to tease him. She mischievously asks him to help her put on her new stockings, throwing him into a panic. Flustered but determined to help, Masachika complies. However, Alya wasn't expecting him to take her request seriously, and in her embarrassment, she instinctively kicks him, sending him sprawling to the floor. Later, Masachika tries to make amends by apologizing for the awkward moment. He even jokingly thanks Alya for unintentionally showing him her thigh during the ordeal, which only flusters her further. Humiliated and angry, Alya storms off, leaving Masachika to chase after her. When he finally catches up, he apologizes again and offers her one of her favorite drinks as a peace offering. This gesture softens Alya's mood. The next day, Masachika heads to the materials warehouse to help Yuki organize supplies. The two engage in light-hearted banter, but their interaction is interrupted when Alya unexpectedly shows up. Masachika is surprised to see her, as he wasn't aware she would be there. Alya, on the other hand, notices the chemistry between Masachika and Yuki, which stirs jealousy within her. Though she tries to mask her emotions, her irritation is evident. Watching Masachika and Yuki talk and laugh together only deepens Alya's frustration. In an attempt to grab his attention, she mutters something in Russian, knowing it will pique his interest. As expected, Masachika immediately notices, though he pretends not to understand. Unbeknownst to Alya, her feelings for him might be far more transparent than she realizes. Up until now, Alya had been a victim of her own overconfidence, believing no one could truly understand the meaning behind her cryptic remarks. After completing their cleanup duties at the warehouse, Kenzaki, the student council president, decides to invite Masachika, Sue, and Alya to dinner as a token of appreciation for their hard work. During the meal, Sue confidently insists that Masachika should become her vice president once she ascends to the role of student council president. However, Masachika flatly declines, expressing no interest in taking up such a position, much to Sue's frustration. Kenzaki then casually mentions that Alya also plans to run for student council president, effectively making her Sue's direct opponent. For reasons he doesn't immediately understand, this revelation unexpectedly captures Masachika's attention, leaving him deep in thought. After dinner, Kenzaki asks Masachika to accompany Alya home while he walks Sue back. As they walk through the quiet streets, Masachika turns to Alya and asks if she truly wants to become the student council president. She confidently affirms her intentions but doesn't elaborate further, leaving the conversation to drift into silence. When they arrive at her house, Masachika is startled to notice Sue's shoes by the doorway. Curious, he steps inside and finds Sue sprawled casually on the couch, engrossed in reading a novel. Surprised, he asks why she's there, and with a sly smile she nonchalantly explains that she's spending the night. While Sue reads aloud a particularly dramatic passage from her book, Masachika takes the opportunity to confront her about her habit of pretending to be his childhood friend at school. Sue, ever playful, brushes off his concerns with a cheeky response, claiming that siblings are friends too. The next morning, Sue wakes Masachika up in her usual teasing manner. After some lighthearted banter, the two set out together to watch a movie and enjoy a day of shopping at the mall. While browsing through clothing stores, Masachika suddenly notices Alya lingering nearby, her gaze fixed on them. Feeling slightly uneasy, he turns to Sue and asks if she's noticed Alya's presence. Sue, unfazed, admits she's been aware of Alya following them from the start. Surprised by Sue's perceptiveness, Masachika finds himself at a loss for how to react. Sue decides to take control of the situation and approaches Alya with a warm and cheerful greeting. Both girls awkwardly pretend they hadn't noticed each other's earlier actions. To break the tension, Sue invites Alya to join them for lunch. Alya hesitates for a moment but ultimately agrees. Unbeknownst to her, the restaurant they head to specializes in spicy food, something Alya, being Russian, is entirely unprepared for. During the meal, Sue gleefully persuades her to add even more spice to her dish, leaving Alya struggling with the fiery heat. Feeling sympathetic, Masachika steps in and buys her an ice cream to soothe the burning sensation. After lunch, Alya shyly asks Masachika to accompany her while she shops for clothes. Initially reluctant, he eventually agrees. Each outfit Alya tries on earns her an honest compliment from Masachika, which visibly flusters her. Emboldened by his praise, she decides to try on a more daring and elegant outfit to gauge his reaction. However, when she pulls back the curtain to reveal herself, she's mortified to find Sue watching as well. As the day winds down, Alya bids Masachika and Sue a polite farewell. But as she watches them leave, she notices they both get off at the same train station. This unexpected detail deepens her suspicions, planting doubts about the true nature of their relationship. Feeling disheartened and conflicted, Alya returns home with a heavy heart. At the entrance, her older sister Masha greets her with a cheerful hug. Noticing Alya's unusually somber expression, Masha asks what's bothering her. After some hesitation, Alya admits she saw Masachika and Sue acting overly close, which has left her feeling unsettled. Masha, ever curious, can't help but find it amusing that her perfectionist sister, who has always set impossibly high standards and routinely rejected even the most eligible suitors, is so captivated by someone like Masachika. Since childhood, Alya has been a driven and ambitious perfectionist, striving for excellence in everything she does. Yet, despite her efforts, her classmates often overlooked her diligence, leaving her feeling isolated and underappreciated. Determined to prove her worth, Alya worked tirelessly to pass a competitive transfer exam, hoping a change of environment would bring her the recognition she craved. However, upon arriving at her new school, she was dismayed to find her classmate Masachika napping during lessons. Curious and slightly annoyed, she tried to wake him, introducing herself as Alyssa Kujo. He greeted her groggily, barely lifting his head to meet her gaze. Alya had high hopes for a fresh start at her new school, but she quickly realized that not much had changed. Despite her lofty expectations, she still felt out of place among classmates who lacked her academic drive. Over time, however, her interactions with Masachika began to challenge her initial perceptions of him. When the haunted house festival approached, Alya took the preparations seriously, often staying late to ensure every detail was perfect. Noticing her struggles, Masachika surprised her by stepping up and organizing the class to help. His initiative and leadership caught Alya off guard, as she had always assumed he was lazy and unmotivated. Through his actions, Masachika demonstrated the power of collaboration, showing Alya that she didn't need to shoulder every responsibility alone. He encouraged her to delegate tasks and inspire her peers, rather than trying to do everything herself. For the first time, Alya felt genuinely understood and began seeing Masachika in a new light. Later, when Masachika jokingly referred to her as the Ice Princess, Alya was deeply hurt, interpreting the nickname as a sign that others saw her as cold or unapproachable. Sensing her distress, Masachika immediately apologized and promised never to call her that again. This heartfelt moment marked a turning point for Alya, who realized she felt safe and understood around Masachika. Though she tried to conceal her emotions, her growing affection for him was undeniable. Inside, her heart raced whenever they interacted, though she worked hard to maintain a calm and composed exterior. After recounting the day's events to her sister, Alya insists that Masachika and Sue are just friends, though her frustration betrays her true emotions. Masha listens attentively, smiling knowingly. She can see that Alya's feelings for Masachika run far deeper than her sister is willing to admit. The following morning, Masachika arrived at the student council office, temporarily stepping in for his sister. Upon entering, he encountered Masha, who enthusiastically introduced herself to him. Despite only knowing Masachika by his last name, Masha appeared genuinely happy to meet him. As their conversation progressed, something about his name piqued her interest. She couldn't shake the familiarity it brought. Masha, who had lived in Japan during her childhood, recalled spending afternoons playing with a boy who shared the same name as Masachika. The coincidence was startling, but she brushed aside her curiosity and focused on her responsibilities as part of the student council team. Later, during a break, Masha and Masachika stopped by a nearby tea shop to relax. While sipping tea, Masachika found himself reflecting on his past, his parents' separation, the constant arguments that filled their home, and the emotional distance that formed between them. These painful memories stirred a sense of melancholy in him. Masha, noticing his sadness, instinctively hugged him in an attempt to comfort him. At that moment, Masachika felt an unexpected sense of familiarity in her embrace, as if he had known her before. It was a strange and unexplainable feeling that lingered with him. Once they had completed their tasks and purchased the necessary supplies, they encountered Kenzaki. Kenzaki praised Masachika for his dedication and effort, encouraging him to officially join the student council. He added that joining the council could potentially improve Masachika's social life, even joking that it might help him find a girlfriend. Kenzaki went on to mention that he had sent Alya to mediate a dispute between the baseball and soccer teams, who were arguing over scheduling conflicts for their upcoming matches. The news immediately concerned Masachika, prompting him to rush to Alya's aid. When Masachika arrived, he saw Alya struggling to mediate the heated argument. Neither team was willing to compromise, and their resistance left her feeling overwhelmed and unsure of how to handle the situation. In a quiet moment, Alya wished aloud that someone would come to her rescue. As if answering her wish, Masachika stepped forward, confidently announcing that he was there on behalf of the student council. Alya was taken aback by his sudden appearance. With remarkable composure, Masachika swiftly resolved the issue, persuading both teams to share the date and field without further conflict. Afterward, he apologized to Alya for stepping in, acknowledging that it was her task to handle. However, Alya expressed her gratitude, clearly relieved by his intervention. Later, Kenzaki approached Masachika once more, pressing him for a final decision about joining the council. Masachika confirmed that he would join, but Alya, overhearing the conversation, felt uneasy. She suspected his decision was influenced by Sue, which left her conflicted. That afternoon, as they walked home together, Alya decided to confront him. She asked if he was really joining the council for Sue's sake. Masachika admitted he wanted to join, but not because of Sue. Instead, he revealed that his true motivation was to support Alya in her goal of becoming student council president. Alya was deeply moved by his words, though she tried to hide her emotions. Masachika, on the other hand, began to realize that his feelings for Alya were growing stronger. Yet he was conflicted. The last time he had felt this way was during his childhood, for a Russian girl he had lost contact with long ago. As Masachika became lost in thought, Alya misinterpreted his silence and assumed he was thinking about Sue. Frustrated, she impulsively slapped him, leaving them both stunned. Realizing her mistake, Alya quickly helped him up, apologizing for her reaction. When they reached Alya's house, she asked about his cheek, concerned she might have hurt him. Masachika assured her that he was fine, but before he could say more, Alya leaned in and kissed him softly on the cheek. The gesture left Masachika blushing and utterly confused. Alya then bid him good night and disappeared into her house. As Masachika walked home, his mind was a whirlwind of emotions. He questioned whether Alya's feelings for him were genuine or if he was misreading the situation. The wounds of his past loomed over him. The painful memories of his parents' separation, the shouting matches that defined his childhood, and the walls he had built to shield himself from emotional pain. These fears made it difficult for him to embrace the possibility of love. When he arrived home, Masachika was surprised to find his sister there. However, his surprise quickly turned into discomfort when he accidentally walked in on her in the bathroom. The situation was awkward and deeply embarrassing for him, though his sister, Sue, seemed unfazed and even amused by it. Masachika couldn't understand her strange attitude toward him and was left puzzled by her behavior. Sue was drying her hair in Miss A's room when the conversation took a surprising turn. Masachika revealed that he had decided to join the student council team. However, his reason wasn't to oppose Alya but to support her presidency, a decision that left Sue visibly unsettled. She initially struggled to accept this, doubting that Masachika could endure working with Alya for long. Despite her concerns, Sue decided to place her faith in him and reassured him that, no matter what, she would always be there for him if he needed her support. The next morning, Masachika noticed something unusual. His sister hadn't woken him up with her typical playful jokes. This was strange, as Sue's teasing antics were part of their daily routine. Masachika immediately suspected that she might still be upset about his decision to back Alya. However, as he stretched and tried to get out of bed, he felt a sudden hand grab his foot. Startled, he jumped in fright, only to discover that Sue had been hiding under his bed all along, waiting for the perfect moment to scare him. Once she achieved her goal, Sue found herself stuck under the bed and reluctantly asked Masachika for help. Amused by the situation, he agreed, but not before taking the opportunity to playfully tease her back as a form of friendly revenge. Meanwhile, Alya was lost in thought, pondering how she should act around Masachika after their encounter the night before. When she heard him enter the living room, her nerves flared up. However, their greeting went smoothly, and Masachika didn't bring up anything about the previous night, which left Alya both relieved and curious. As they spoke, she began to notice subtle changes in him, even thinking he looked more handsome and confident than usual. Later, during a volleyball match, Alya showcased her remarkable athletic skills, leaving her classmates in awe of her talent. Her performance stood in stark contrast to Masachika's unfortunate misstep. He was accidentally knocked unconscious by a stray volleyball. Concerned, Alya stayed by his side, ensuring he was okay and offering him her full attention. After practice, the two shared a casual conversation until they bumped into Masha, who openly flirted with Masachika and showered him with compliments. Annoyed by this interaction, Alya grabbed Masachika's hand and led him away without much explanation, confusing him further. Her behavior was puzzling to him, especially since she was usually more reserved. However, just as quickly, she reverted to her usual sharp demeanor, teasing him about how well-rested he looked that morning. Alya, however, misinterpreted his composure, assuming he had spent the night in Sue's company, which left her irritated and storming off in frustration. The next day, Masachika invited Alya to attend a student council meeting. She agreed, and when they arrived, they found the members of the baseball and soccer teams lined up with military-like discipline. Chizaki, a member of the student council, was addressing them with an air of authority as preparations for the meeting began. Shortly after, Sue and Masha arrived, completing the team. Masachika formally introduced himself, announcing his official position within the council and declaring his intention to support Alya in her bid for the presidency. During the meeting, Sue excused herself, mentioning that she needed to attend an art club gathering and invited Alya to join her. Masachika found Sue's behavior suspicious and assumed she was plotting something. On their way to the gathering, Alya suggested they talk privately, and Sue agreed. Once alone, Alya apologized for Masachika's decision to support her. Sue reassured her, explaining that it didn't bother her since it was ultimately Masachika's choice. Seizing the moment, Alya nervously asked Sue a bold question, if she loved Masachika. Sue didn't hesitate and confessed that she loved him deeply, more than even her own parents. This unexpected revelation left Alya completely shocked and speechless. Noticing Alya's stunned reaction, Sue smirked and turned the question back on her. Alya struggled to answer, unable to find the right words. Yet, deep down, one thing was clear to her. Masachika was hers, and she wouldn't let anyone else take him away. Sue, seemingly amused, acknowledged Alya's unspoken determination and left it at that. Before leaving, she asked if she could call Alya by her first name, a gesture of friendship. Though Alya found it a bit strange, she agreed. In return, Sue allowed Alya to call her Yuki, a nickname reserved for close friends. Despite the seemingly friendly exchange, Alya couldn't shake her regret over asking Sue such personal questions. Back at the council office, Masachika was working alongside Masha, reviewing and correcting documents. He couldn't help but admire her organizational skills and intelligence, which stood in stark contrast to Chisaki's often chaotic approach. Masha's calm demeanor and soothing voice made the work environment much more comfortable for him. At one point, she prepared a traditional Russian-style tea, which immediately reminded Masachika of his mother, who had a habit of making it every day. A short while later, Alya and Sue arrived at the office. From the tension between them, it was clear their earlier conversation hadn't gone as smoothly as they led on. Without hesitation, Alya sat down next to Masachika, subtly invading his personal space. She used the playful excuse that sitting in corners alone would doom her to a life of singleness, a statement that left Masachika both amused and perplexed. Subscribe to get notified for the part 2 of the video.